Hello, everyone.
Hello.
I feel like it's so fitting of today. Morgan, do you know what today is?
No, it's nothing special. That's the
Oh.
answer, right? It's nothing special today.
International Move Out Day, no big deal.
No, definitely not. But it's Canada Day, right? Yeah.
I believe so. So all our Canadian friends, happy Canada Day.
Happy
Welcome to
Canada Day.
this fun B2B Power Hour of red and white.
Of red and white. Now, see, here's the thing. Give us a couple of days, and us Americans are going to be plenty obnoxious with our red, white, and blue come Monday, since July 4th is our Independence Day. So
Why'd you have to ruin it with one more color?
I know.
Just kidding.
Yeah, you keep it so simple up, and meanwhile we add blue. Oh no. Right? Well, hey everybody, welcome. I see this chat's blowing up. If you're here, drop a hey in chat. We want to say hi. If you've never been to one of these before, this is your first one. We like to kick it off with a question of the day. So, Nick, do you have a question of the day today?
Yeah, actually, I do. I just thought of it.
Mm-hmm.
So, all of our B2B listeners, what is your favorite part about Canada?
Imagined or real? Especially if you've never been. I've been to Canada. What is my favorite part of
Yeah,
Canada?
that's what I was wondering. I was like, Morgan, like you're teasing here, but like, let's hear.
Well, there's something that's like economic, and then there's something I genuinely I think Canadians are great people, and I've never met a Canadian who I didn't like. So there's that. You know, I'm sure you met plenty of Canadians you don't like, Nick. Sure, that's the reality of actually living there. Yeah, I mean, as an American, I feel a little envious as somebody who works for myself that I have to pay for private health insurance and you all don't. But that's maybe something for another day.
You also get access to the doctors faster, so I feel like
there's some trade-offs.
Like, yeah.
Syrup, I saw
solid.
maple. I don't know if Tim Hortons is something I celebrate about Canada. I feel like it's something that's like there. I don't.
I feel the same way about Starbucks, so it's all good.
Okay, yeah, I was totally bad. It's Starbucks, yeah.
What else we got? Yeah.
BC
I actually hikes. Yes, the mountains.
Comment. Forgive if we miss any names. Diversity in food. So many people from different walks of life. That's true. That's been my experience every time I visited Canada. I was like, wow, there's a lot of different people. There's a lot of different cultures. And like, yeah, America is sort of the melting pot, but depending upon which part of America you're in, you don't always get that experience. So, yeah. How about you,
agree.
Nick? What's your favorite part of your country?
Space. Green, open space. I never realized how big Canada was until traveling. And then it's like, I went and drove from Edmonton to Calgary, and I just drove across Europe. No,
yeah. You're not far off. I mean,
Canadian Tire.
Oh, that's great.
But they're never anywhere when you actually need one.
Yeah. I love these little like interregional differences in Canada. I feel now, correct me if I'm wrong here. We're just going to dwell on this for a moment. I feel like there are big provincial differences in Canada.
No.
Like having been to Montreal, I'm going to say there's big provincial differences. Do you think that they're as big as like between what you perceive different American states are?
No, just it's all the same things, just different scales of severity.
Okay.
BC doesn't talk to Alberta. They're mad about their gas prices. We're mad about gas prices.
Yeah.
They feel the federal government doesn't listen to us. They feel like the federal government doesn't listen to them. It's the same conversation, different Northern style.
Yep. Totally. Well,
Okay.
I'm loving this chat this morning. Thanks for blowing up comments. Keep it coming. If this is your first time here, this is your power hour as much as ours. We love questions. We love comments. We love insights. Drop them in chat as we continue to go through today's topic, because today is about commenting.
Who
I
does
know.
that?
What? Surprise! In case you missed the title, how to book a meeting with anyone in the comments. Nick, I was actually talking with a sales rep the other day, and they were trying to they were trying to figure out how to start with LinkedIn. And of course, it's just something we hear all the time. And they had their profile pretty well dialed in.
Nice.
It was getting there. It was good. And so they had shot me a message, since I post a lot of content, and they said, "Well, how do I get started with content?" And I was like, whoa, hold the horses. That's not where you need to start. Let's start with comments, because comments, I feel, are the highest leverage point on LinkedIn. It requires it and leverage in terms of effort to reward. Like, it's a little bit of effort and it can generate a ton of reward just through commenting. And we've seen that in our own experiments, right? I mean, comments are where it's at.
But it's like that like sleeping giant that you
Mm.
don't really give much credit until you have one of those holy crap moments. And honestly, we can even start with one of my favorite stories is how do we get most people on the podcast, Morgan?
Comments.
There's a lot of really big names that have blessed our podcasts
Hmm.
and have, given us all this great wisdom. They weren't paid. We didn't DM or like hit them up with like personalized DMs or like InMails. It's just been a blend of comments.
It's on and like surprisingly large accounts, in all honesty, that we've been just able to generate conversations and create engagement, create visibility. So, where do you want to start today, Nick? Comments are
So
important, great, but like, where do you want to start?
I think there's 3 different levels. So when you think about commenting, you should do it for one selfish reason to start, and that is to know your audience. So for you to be the person that knows your audience better than anyone else, because guess what? That can go with you to any company, and that knowledge is highly coveted. But how the hell do you do that?
Mm-hmm.
We've been researching clients for the past couple months to go and do projects, and it's funny. You go into the comments, and you're like, well, how in the comments? Well, everybody follows someone for their knowledge, for their industry information. Who are those trusted sources? That's part one. So
Mm-hmm.
this is the influencer strategy.
Mm-hmm.
It's part one.
And that doesn't take that long from a part one. So, from a tactical perspective, to get to know your audience, you're basically finding trusted voices on LinkedIn that your target accounts follow. And you can do that. You can go to their profile, your target accounts profiles, those who are active, and look, who are they commenting on? Who are they liking? Who are they engaging with? And then your goal is to find maybe 5 to 10 accounts, I think. It could be more, but 5 to 10 is going to keep you plenty busy, especially if they're active influencers or content creators. And then you're going to hop into their comments and do what? Once you find these influencers, Nick, what do you do? Do you drop a comment or?
What I used to do is I used to just drop a comment and then go away.
Hmm.
And honestly, there's no value in this. There is to a certain degree, but this is like the Pareto principle of 80-20. This is 80% of the work. But if you add a little extra step, and this extra step is go through the comments. And the thing is, you don't actually want to post right when they post. You don't want to go and jump on their post right away because you want more people to comment. And what you do is you're looking for people with the right titles of your ICP and personas and trying to think of their mental model. What's going on in their head? How are they thinking about this? Does it align with what I think about this? Where's the difference? How are they thinking about the market? Does it align with what we think about as a company? How does that align with our product roadmap? And this is when we become the detective. This is when, this is how people like Brandon were born, Brandon Flaherty. Like, It's that strategic thinker. You're designing that sales process, that buying process, by thinking about how people think about what you do. And
Mhm.
so, what questions are they asking? I wonder why they're asking that question. What are they thinking about that's leading them to there? Is it a project they're working on? Is it a trouble in their workflow at work? Is it a new roles and responsibility because they just got promoted? But the selfish reason to comment and run an influencer strategy is you get this knowledge at scale without having to aggressively hunt for it or pay a market research firm or all these different things. And you can do it in less than 10 minutes every morning. All you got
Yeah.
to do is follow 3 to 5 influencers, spend 5 minutes or less on each one, go through, look for those comments that match. And if anything gives you that aha or really catches you off guard, write it down.
I was just about to say, pro tip. The reason we start here is because all of us have assumptions about the market as sellers. We assume certain things about our buyers, and we create a mental model or an assumption or an intuition, whatever you want to call it, about what it means for a buyer to be a good buyer, what their pains are, what their problems are, what questions they're going to ask, and so on. What Nick is pointing to is you can do all of your market research in quotes just by looking through comments from your ICPs on these trusted influencer accounts. And just clarification before this pro tip, we're not talking about Gary Vee. We're not talking about celebrity influencers on LinkedIn that have millions of followers. We're talking the 10, could even be 5,000, but 10,000 to 50,000 sort of follower accounts. A lot of people who have a good audience, who have a community in the comments. So you're going to get enough of your ICPs to engage. And that can depend on the industry. There's no hard and fast rule here. But the pro tip that Nick was just pointing out is have a notes document in your notes app or have a Google Doc or something. And all you're going to do is you're just going to start copy and pasting stuff. The
Might
things
need
that
it for the next strategies.
yeah. And you might need this to be successful in the other stuff we're going to outline today. For me, I didn't do this for a long time. I'll
Yeah,
be straightforward with
me
you.
too.
We both didn't because it was like, oh, well, commenting is sort of about like getting attention, which is kind of true, and it's about getting engagement, which is especially true. But
Watching profile views, they're like, oh,
yeah,
did I get a couple more from that comment?
I had a really good comment on a big profile, and I got a lot of profile views. But when you're using comments to do social listening, which is what this is called, and you're listening into these conversations and the questions, even if you do this for 2 weeks, I mean, here's the thing, make a bet. Do this for 10 minutes a day for 2 weeks. Copy and paste interesting questions or insights that your ICP are leaving on people's accounts, on these influencers' posts. And then at the end of the 2 weeks, look at your Google Doc or look at your notes or whatever and see all of the interesting insights and patterns that you have learned about your buyers.
Oh,
That is about more than just leaving a good comment. That can influence your whole sales process.
I just want to note it here. We'll come back to this later. Take those questions that you do not know the answers to yet and turn it into a journal project every morning. Spend
Ooh.
10 to 30 minutes writing an answer to practice articulating your response to get clear and succinct. And I'll come back to why that matters. And if you can search for it and find it.
Yep.
But the thing is, you gotta remember, people don't know who you are. They can't see your face. They can only see your profile picture, your tagline, your
Mhm.
banner, the 3-second test on your profile. Maybe they'll look at your summary. But when they have an influencer that they look up to, that they go to because they trust them so much to go and get the information that shapes who they are and how they want to be seen in the market, and then they see those people commenting on your stuff, interacting with you, having conversations, what do you think they're thinking about you?
Mhm.
So this is the other side. This is where it builds you up. It adds to your credibility. It builds that personal brand. And when they see them doing that, which doesn't take too long, it's typically a week or two, sometimes more, depending on the size of that influencer's following. Then what you want to do is you're going through those comments and you're adding more credibility because you're getting to know their audience. You're being part of that community in the comments. This is so critical because really all influencers is community leaders that really inspire information in the comments so that people can share information, challenge ideas, and learn as a team or unlearn bad habits. Because I've had to unlearn a lot of bad habits
Me
lately.
too.
But that's why the influencer commenting strategy is number one. But what you need to do now is let's move it forward.
Let's.
So,
Can we throw up Rebecca's question really quick on the screen?
oh, sorry, I didn't see it.
She asked, which questions are you copying and pasting your ICPs, and what if they don't post on LinkedIn? Good question. Yes, you
Fantastic
are
question.
copying and pasting the questions from your ICPs or insights or comments or other things. You're being the detective, as Nick said. Now, if they're not active on LinkedIn, well, then yeah, you're shit out of luck.
Nope,
So,
not quite, not quite. So
Nick, correct me. Go for it.
there's a hard way of doing this, and it's doing customer interviews, asking them
Mm-hmm.
what sources they trust, and you go a little bit deeper. The faster, easier way of doing this is to just look at the one lost accounts, or even close one or close lost, and then Google their name.
Hmm.
Look at what social profiles that they have on. Some people are really active on Twitter instead, especially in IT, or
Mm.
maybe they're on Reddit. Look for their accounts and then look at where they're engaging if they engage. If you can't find a couple people that are engaging at all, then you have to go ask.
Yeah.
And so what you're doing is this is like your North Star of just gathering information. It doesn't matter what platform it's on. LinkedIn, because we talk with a lot of sellers, that's where a lot of sellers are.
Mm-hmm.
So, and you can even go and look at sellers and ask because they love to talk. So they're a
Yeah,
great
you beat
resource.
me. You beat me to my follow on to the SOL answer. I was just being blunt. Sorry.
Okay.
There's so much more out there that we can learn about our ICPs, not necessarily just on LinkedIn comments. We're just using comments today. Okay, Nick, what's next?
Okay. Jeez. Okay. Sorry, I'm hitting puberty again. We're learning so fast that my
I
body just
know.
can't keep up. So the next big step is putting it into action. So you have this knowledge, this insight that can change the game for your customers. And so now you're moving that step forward. And as had hinted at earlier, it's called social listening. So we've thought about these problems and why they come up, but we also have the exact phrasing they used to ask their question or to state their problem. Now go find it.
Hmm.
So take those pieces, whether they use hashtags, whether they use just actual phrasing, put it in quotation marks, do a hard search on LinkedIn, just LinkedIn organic, just search for it. See if you can find those conversations happening right now. Because the hardest part about sales and nobody talks about is it's about change management. And have you ever talked to your spouse or a friend or someone and tried to tell them they were wrong when they very much did not agree? This is what we come up against in sales when we try to force people down a road.
Hmm.
This strategy, the comment strategy of social listening, is about finding people that know there's a problem, they're feeling it. They may not be able to articulate it well, but they're like, I'm really frustrated with how many cold calls it takes to book a meeting. What is that telling you? What is the core piece of that problem? Where is it coming from? This is where our detective work comes in. Is we're going through and we're like, I wonder if it's their messaging, if it's their account list building and prioritization. I wonder which one it could be. Okay, so how do I go and start this conversation to make it fun, to make it engaging, respect what they're saying, but start my discovery by asking great questions, highly relevant to what the problem they're trying to solve. Let's help them. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
We're just trying to help them. We're not trying to belittle them. We're not trying to be smarter than them. We're just trying to help them. But that all comes from that initial influencer strategy to understand your ICP of how they're actually saying problems. Nobody says, I need a really strategic partner to go and buy, you know, to go and deal with my Frankenstack to go and they don't use like the jargon. They talk like buddies. They talk like
Mm-hmm.
friends. They're not as formal. So we have to go and find the way they actually say it. A really, really great place to find this that almost no one uses is case studies on your website. Go on the very top. There's always quotations, and they tell you who's the quotes from. So that's a persona that was part of the buying process, either on the tail end on the implementation, also very important, or somebody that championed it the whole way through. And once again, if you have a great team, clean data, and a CRM, you can also go back and look at your close won and close lost to keep building this case mentally so that you can go and really guide your detective work and have great conversations. Now, going back to Stacy's comment, I can't remember if I pulled it up or not about the dark social.
No,
So, if I can find it.
It's a ways back.
On the road again. Shoot. Anyways, that's frustrating. I'm blind. But Stacy had said this really great comment about comments are the real comments are the real dark social. The reason being is once we start putting these comments out in the world and we're social listening, let's go back to junior high and high school. When it was, we're kind of figuring out who we are, everything around us in the world is changing, and we're uncomfortable yet have questions. So we're uncomfortable that we don't know, but we don't want to ask. So we're sitting there in the background listening to this information because we want it. Sometimes we want it, and we don't want to ask that question. But then you get somebody in the class that finally bucks up and they ask that question that you've been wondering. And you're like, oh, thank God they asked it because I was wondering the exact same thing. Well, the real dark social comes in is LinkedIn and every other platform rewards comments because it's engagement. You're continuing the conversation on the feed. So Morgan, why is that so important?
What do you like in general?
Okay. But like the algorithm likes it, so it spreads it. Mm-hmm. But like that kid in class that asked the question when everybody was listening, is that a lot of LinkedIn are lurkers. About 90% of LinkedIn are just hiding in the background, just consuming information. They're not yet engagers. Only about 9%, give or take, kind of depends on who you ask and the flavor of the month. But it's like 9% are engagers and only 1% are posting content. So you are doing the brave thing that people look up and respect you for because you're helping answer those questions that everybody has. But the thing is, as soon as you start commenting, your followers, their followers, and anybody else in that comment stream sees it. So this has a magnifying effect. So in sales, we always get taught to have one-on-one conversations. I'm just talking to you guys. I'm just talking to Morgan. But because we're doing this live, it is now I'm talking to all of you. Mm-hmm. When we're doing comments, we're talking with one person, but everybody can listen in. So this is how you work smarter, not harder in sales, so that you do this in the morning, set yourself 30 minutes. When you're running meetings, when you're cold calling, when you're emailing, doing all the other admin, anything else in your job, this is working. This is churning. People are thinking about it. And then at the end of end of the day, you just come back and there'll be DMs. There'll be connection requests because people appreciate the knowledge that you have and they trust you. Mm-hmm. And this all came from the influencer strategy, knowing your audience really well, and those really tough questions that somebody brave asked. Now you turn that into how they're communicating a problem in a post, finding that problem because they know it's there, they just don't know what it means. And you're helping shine some light on it so that they really understand what's going on so that they can do something about it. Not pitch, because they're not there yet. They're asking about the problem because they don't know what's going on. So they need to feel understood. They need somebody to explain it. And then we got the solution. Beautiful.
I don't want to skip over something really quick, which is like briefly mentioned. Finding these conversations is what's called a Boolean query, which is a very fancy way to say you're doing a hard search. And what Nick is pointing to is you take the phrase, I don't know, social selling, if you take the phrase and it's a couple words or it's a sentence or it's something that you see come up a lot, you put that into the LinkedIn search bar with 2 quotes around it, and it searches for that phrase instead of each individual word. So you can get a more specific list of posts that you can comment on or that you can work with to do more social listening or figure out if it's worth engaging. And on that, you can, if you do this on LinkedIn, you can sort by latest posts, you can search by author, you can search by industry. There's a lot of ways to tailor the comments and the conversations that you're creating on the
Still a pain in
platform.
the ass on LinkedIn.
I mean, it's a total pain in the ass. So we laugh about this all the time. It's not super easy, but it's important you start with the hard search with the quotes around the phrase, because otherwise you're going to get a bunch of different posts, a bunch of different fluff that has not an exact match and it's going to be all over the place. So that's an important place to start looking for those conversations. I just
Oh,
wanted to make sure we didn't lose that.
and sort by recent, not relevant, is something
Yeah,
that
it's
is,
like latest or top is what you can
yeah,
sort
latest
by.
or like top. So you'll go
Sort
like
by
sort
latest.
by. Oh, there's so many times I'm like, man, nobody's posted about this, but yet everybody's talking about it. Like, why can't I find it? It's because I had the wrong search. So
Yeah.
if you guys have any questions, please shoot us a message. We have failed at this miserable. We have like dug into the psychology and like asked the no.
No, we've just literally done this for months and fell on our face for like 6 of them, and now we have some results based on what we were doing. And I love
Hmm.
Terrence just dropped. I just did this for Sales Nav manufacturers. Yes, the hard Boolean queries exactly. So it works
And
well
you
in
can do it for
Sales Nav,
titles too.
and you can do it for titles as well. There's lots of ways to search for that exact match phrase, which transforms all your social listening time into something that's useful, right?
I will go and add, Terrence, you can also add like capital letters and,
Oh yeah.
capital letters or, capital letters not. So and it'll be different searches coming together, or is one or the other, and
Either
not is
or.
it excludes it. Which
Hmm.
Sales Nav does that for you, but you guys can do, you can go and play with this. It is well worth your time. But funny enough, this is what we're talking about next. So, Terrence, thank you. But
Yeah.
one thing I want to say, because I
Mhm.
think this is really critical, so I get asked this question all the time: how
Which
can you sell your service product to a company agency which are already using a good service? There, let's be honest. There are a lot of great competitors out there.
mhm.
But if somebody did their job right, yours should be different, even if it's just by one way. And so, if you want to do the really hard work, strip your product down to what is the customer actually getting? How is it delivered? How long does it take to see value? Why is it more pricey? Why is it cheaper? Stop. Features and benefits are garbage. Nobody cares. The one I received these, and I never actually realized it until I was put into a buyer seat and got to see it on the other
Oh.
side at
Mhm.
scale.
Mhm.
The two biggest things that come to my mind when I get InMails is so what? And why do I care? I don't have that problem, right? So what you need to do is strip it down to find the value, how it's felt by your customer. Look at where you differ. If I see one more pitch that says we're strategic, we
Oh gosh.
partner, we're, because the question is, if you weren't those things, would you even have a job or exist? So cut
Right.
out the crap. What is the real value when it comes to a competitor? Because honestly, sometimes it's better to let a competitor have something because you're not the greatest fit. So you're not going to get referrals. You're not going to get long term business. So your franchise as a seller, is the way I like to look at it, is you're creating more work for yourself because they're going to call more because they're upset. CS is going to hate you because they're going to be always trying to go and get more out of them or a customized product. So you have to really understand why people choose you.
Mhm.
And if you want to do this the hard way, but really invest in yourself, do a win loss analysis. Pull in another great seller, pull in your manager, do a win loss analysis, figure out why people chose you. So,
Mhm.
what were they doing before you? What changed that made now the time to buy? And then what did they think they were buying? How do they explain what they bought from you?
Mhm.
Just start with those 3 questions.
Mhm.
And once you know that, now you can change your questions to guide the conversation to see if those are really valuable to the person you're talking to, and then do a challenger like, This is what I observed. This is what it means. This is that insight that you're not seeing, but I'm going to guide you in a conversation so we can talk about it.
Yes.
And now it's a bigger conversation, which can happen in the comments.
Can you, Nirajan asked a question at 10:28. If you scroll a little bit, do you guys have this whole strategy in a doc? Funny you should ask. If you go to b2bpowerhour.com on the homepage, we put together a little free guide about how to do this. And it includes like screenshots and written instructions for sales nav. So if you want that, you can go there and get your free copy of that. Yay. Okay. Promo intermission over. We hate doing that. I hate just being like, go do the blah, blah, blah. But anyways.
Smile really confused me on that one then.
Anyways, Suzanne had a good question as well.
I was just looking at that one too.
So Suzanne asks, what about when your ICP isn't active on LinkedIn, but people on the lower end of the totem pole are? Is it worth using comments to create internal champions? What a great, great question.
Since you asked.
Since you asked, yeah. Yes, obviously, based on our responses. However, maybe it's time to introduce this.
No. Don't answer the question first, and I want to hear what you have to say.
No, I
want the marketing's perspective on this.
I'm trying to answer this question strategically. Okay, so a number of months ago on the Power Hour, we had this analogy, whether you're net fishing or spear fishing. So if you think about a big rig that does net fishing, they're just dragging a big old net through the ocean. They're seeing what they pick up, and then they sift through the stuff to see what's left over. Okay. This is how most companies do outbound, in all honesty.
Suspecting.
Yeah. They're suspecting. They're not prospecting. They're just going for anything that they can grab, and then they're letting it sift out through their process. Spearfishing, on the other hand, is obviously being very intentional. And if you've ever watched a documentary, or I don't know, I'm sure it shows up in some like reality TV shows like Survivor, but the spearfishing is a way to be patient, to watch the movements of the fish, and then when it's the right time to actually reach out. So the reason I wanted to bring this up into order to answer Suzanne's question is, are you commenting? Think about this. If you're just commenting on lower end totem pole accounts because you're basically net fishing and you're just trying to see if there's anybody who's interested in what you have to offer, that's not a way for success. But if you're spear fishing and you know that this account that you're going after, even if your target persona isn't active, that there are reasons that account would be a good target for your sales motion. Meaning there's been an event recently, there's a trigger, something's happened, they laid off a lot of people or they hired a lot of people. Whatever your indication is that says this account, this timing is right, and this account would have a reason to work with us that they may not have had before, then of course you can warm up relationships by engaging with folks inside the company who aren't necessarily your key persona. And you can also learn things about the company from those lower end totem poles that make you seem really, really smart when you start talking to the key persona or the key decision maker that isn't active on LinkedIn. Because if eventually you get, let's just hypothetical, you eventually get referred to, or you do a great cold outbound email to that target persona who isn't active on LinkedIn, you're going to have so much knowledge about the company by just interacting with and talking with people who are lower down on the totem pole. And one last thing, which I know maybe I'm stealing your thunder here, Nick, is that oftentimes the people who are actually experiencing the problem you solve are not your key buyer. They are the people who are lower end on the totem pole. So if you want to validate the pain or the problem out in the market, if you want to say, I think this account is right, let me make sure that that's true, and you start commenting and engaging with people who are on the lower end, you can generate a ton of conversations and you can validate that. So then when you go to the key buyer, you can say, look, your finance team said this, or your marketing team said this to me. And other companies who say that experience this problem. And that's something we can solve. Is that worth a chat?
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah.
So even one other thing to consider is look at how quickly the bottom roles that you're talking about advance through the org. What is the time frame before they become a manager, before they become, so like SDR, AE, manager, and above. Look at how long it takes. So sometimes in deals, people will move up as you're actually doing your qualify and quantify. So if you're that main education source for those users, the workers on the ground really feeling that problem and you're helping them solve it, they might be quiet about it at first, but people start to notice.
Mm-hmm.
And as they go, they'll bring you with them because you're their secret weapon. And you'll have to eventually tell people about it, or they'll find out on their own. And so what happens is this works through the orgs. You're earning trust and credibility without actually ever talking to them. Or maybe it is because you're talking because you're using comments.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can do all this qualification and then quantify their problem and understand what you're really solving. And I was actually listening to the Challenger podcast. And I heard a really good story about this, that an AE started doing a demo for a group of executives. And after the executives left the meeting, the exec turned to the other exec and said, my God, it was like he was reading my mind. Every single thing I had on this list, they covered in that demo. But what they didn't know is somebody had been doing discovery before with another exec, going through and finding those. That doesn't have to wait till there's a meeting. You can start this in comments. You can start this going bottom up by fact
Yes.
gathering if you can't find this, because not every company is public. Not every company has an investor report that you can go and figure out their key objectives and then tie to it by that problem that they don't quite understand.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a fun strategy that pays dividends. And the better you know your audience and how quickly they're growing is just how quickly that works.
Mm-hmm. So what we've covered so far is an influencer comment strategy, just like regroup before we get to the next stage. So because we've covered a lot of ground so far. There's an influencer comment strategy. You're finding trusted voices in the space that your ICP engages with, and you're using their comments to learn about social listening or do social listening, learn about your audience, gather insights, and turn those insights into searches and comments in order to build up the case, to build up more questions, to build up more insight, to tie it back to your overall business case. So, Nick, what's next?
I think one thing that I will just mention here, I have those as 2 different 30-minute time blocks.
Great clarification. Yes.
Because it was too much for me to go and do enough meaningful work in just one 30-minute time block. You can try.
Mm-hmm.
You just got to go and set limits, work within them. But that is 2 different 30-minute time blocks at different times of the day.
Mm-hmm. Or different times of the week too. I'll just say, like, I don't do social listening in an intentional way more than twice a week in terms of like actually copying over insights, just because we're active enough. And I think there's also like diminishing returns to a certain point. So if you're really new to this, it's definitely something you may want to invest more time into. But if you have your feet under you, it may not need to be something that happens every day. If you've done it for 2 weeks or 4 weeks, like, you might consider just doing it a check-in once a week or twice a week, for a little bit of time to refine, instead of something you're doing all the time when you're just getting started.
But even simpler than that, pattern recognition.
Mm-hmm.
You've heard it before.
Yeah. Like, oh,
And
I
so
know
you're like,
that.
oh, that's a new one.
Uh-huh.
Write it down.
Mm-hmm.
And that's honestly what I do. I have Google Keep on the side as I'm just scrolling. Boop.
Mm-hmm.
But now we got to talk about the trap of scrolling.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
And so how do we get out of the trap of scrolling, but investing into comments strategically on the accounts that somebody magically put on your list? I mean, that somebody very thoughtfully put on your list. So they're not suspects, they are prospects.
Yeah, you're actually spearfishing, right? We're hoping.
So this is where we have to look at on my time prospecting versus just in time prospecting, or just in the nick of time. Like
in the nick
God.
of time.
I still can't say it with a straight
nick.
face. But on your time prospecting is when the company just wants you to make activities. So you're just trying to justify the company by staying busy. When it gets strategic is when it's just in time. And this is all about prioritizing accounts based on triggers, their signs of pain.
Mm-hmm.
So what could be a sign of pain? Hey, Morgan, I just saw that you guys grew your SDR team by 15 people in the last 30 days. Holy crap. But one thing I noticed is that you had a manager ratio to sales, or a manager to sales ratio of now 22 to 1. What we've with clients that we worked with, what soon follows this is a drop of first a drop of sales performance and then retention. Interested in discussing? But
Mhm.
all you're doing is you're looking at triggers, those signs and symptoms like a sneeze, a cough, watery eyes, whatever it is that
Yeah.
leads to your ailment. But
My
what are
stomach
those?
hurts. Yeah.
But what are those signs and symptoms? But remember, when we went back to the first two comment strategies, we were looking for signs and symptoms, but we were trying to find them in conversations.
Mhm.
Now we're trying to build a business case. So this is purely about the account, very much the B2B play. So what is changing in the company that is saying, "Hey, help, help, help." And so it's
Help
knowing,
me.
honestly, it's also knowing what sales intelligence software will give you the right fields. So when you're doing your account research, you got to figure out what fields you need to actually add. And then when you're looking at triggers, you're trying to look at how those fields can change. So what are your triggers? Throw one in the comments. What is one trigger that makes a company ready for you? And please God, if anybody writes fundraising and just says more money, more problems,
It's not that. We're
it's
looking
going to
for more
drive me
specifics.
nuts.
Yeah.
Because
So,
hey, look, you just raised your Series B.
mhm.
So what? Because there's no context, there's no relevancy. Of course they did. They've been blasting it out for the past month. Of
Yeah.
course they did.
They
But
want
what do
people to
you
know.
know that they don't, that would be a game changer to make sure that money goes further?
So, I've often called this the Princess Leia moment, which is, "Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi, you're my only hope." So, the idea is not that Princess Leia is in need of help, right? There is context to her troubles. She has been captured by the Empire, all right? She has the Death Star plans. So I'm seeing some and kind of coming in. So hiring is a great starting point. I would call that a qualification. Is the company growing or is it shrinking? A trigger is something has changed from their normal trajectory. Princess Leia was doing fine on her little rebel ship until she got captured by the Empire. So, what is happening that turns them into needing help? And that is, this is the nuance, and it's a little tricky nuance if we're not used to this, because as sellers, we actually spend the least amount of time thinking through qualification. If we do volume based outbound, we are starting with qualification. So when you move from becoming a net fisher to a spear fisher, you're starting with qualifications. And I'm seeing some comments in chat that are basically, in my eyes, qualifications. They are hiring, or they have new people, or they're running paid ads, or they have Chili Piper. Those are basic level qualifications that says this account is potentially the right kind of account for us to work with. Triggers are a level above that. And this is what gets so fun because you become like Sherlock Holmes, right? So I want to give an example, Nick. One of the triggers that we have, so from a base level qualification, one of the things we learned was that if they have a really high sales to marketing ratio, they might be a good fit for us because they're a sales led company. If they have a lot of salespeople compared to marketing people, they're a sales led company. That's qualification. A trigger for us is they just hired a sales enablement manager. So it's not hiring specifically, and it's not that they have the role, it's that within the last 30 days, they hired somebody new with a particular title and a particular job description. That is a trigger because it indicates there's context. Wow, why would they hire a sales enablement manager? Let's see here. They
Mm.
need more support for their sales team. Maybe their sales team isn't hitting quota. Maybe there's more complexity in the sales process now that they have more staff. Maybe they need more resources or they need to standardize the sales play. All of these things are indicative of problems we can help solve. That's a trigger. It is, and as Nick says, pain has an expiry date. Pain goes away,
90 days.
usually
60
within
to
90
90
days.
days.
So it's not that a company raised Series B. That's maybe a qualification. It's what did they do with their Series B or what didn't they do with their Series B? That's the trigger.
This goes back to that win-loss analysis. Why did they hire you and what did they think they were buying?
Mm-hmm.
So this is really knowing those customers and then going, "Oh, I'm not going to waste time spending all this time like searching for everything. I'm going to automate the capture
Mm-hmm.
of that information so that I can put more time and energy into personalizing something that's relevant to that role, to that company, to that individual."
And I just want to, I think Greg had previously asked, because we're time, we need to move on with comments. Triggers are a thing we've talked about a lot on the B2B Power Hour. So if you're looking for more resources, you can find many episodes on the podcast recently. Another one called How to Book a Meeting with Anyone on LinkedIn. There's another one called Direct Outreach Strategies. You can find both of those on YouTube or on our podcast. And we dive into this in more detail. But the only reason I'm pushing Nick is because I'm time sensitive and I want to get to the most crucial question, which I hear a lot, is how do I do this in the comments? Like I could send a DM or, oh God forgive me, I send an InMail, but uh how do you what we're supposed to do this in the comments, Nick?
Terrence, what you could be looking for is just do a Boolean search for human resources or
Mm-hmm.
human resources director. And then what you do is there's under, can't remember which one it is, but it's time in role. So how
Mm.
long have they been in the role? Do 6 months or less.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, LinkedIn doesn't let you dial it in that perfect, but that's a good way of doing it. If you're following the accounts and you have account lists, it'll tell you that they hired a new director or decision maker. Just take a quick peek and see if it's in those roles that you want. That's why save searches, account lists, and lead lists save you time.
Mm-hmm. In
Okay,
Sales
sorry.
Navigator.
Morgan, you had a great question for me.
How do you do this in the comments? Like how do you actually do how do you do the meeting booking thing in the comments? Like we're not talking about some DM like, oh hey, do you have 15 minutes of time or whatever, right?
So I'm gonna tell the origin story because I've never told this to anyone, but I reached out to someone and I got such a horrible response because I did the typical thing of I asked for a meeting and they
Mm.
got really mad at me. Even though I had done my research, they got mad. And I'm like, well, what the hell? What happened? But it made me think. It made me rethink my approach. And I found a really good question that I take into account every account that I target. I tried to go and spit it better and I'm
Yeah,
like, shit, I lost it. But anyways,
it was good. It was a good try. I liked it.
how do who in this company needs to know I exist and what do they need to know before they can buy
Mm-hmm.
are the two questions. And if you want to up the ante to 3, my favorite question, because I love to challenge myself, a healthy challenge is good for everyone, is how can I get them to book a meeting with me in 60 days or less?
And just to clarify, the challenge that Nick sets himself is not an outbound meeting booked, but an inbound meeting booked. He is gearing up to try and get them to book a meeting with him in the next 60 days, not, hey, can I grab 15 minutes of your time?
So let's think about this. Comments are outbound that are inbound. They're outbound that create inbound. That's what it
Mm-hmm.
is. So, like a great discovery call, it's all built in prep. You got to put just as much time in prep to go and make sure that you've actually designed that buyer experience where it wows them. So, what would I need to do if I'm targeting my top 5 accounts this week? And I know those personas very well. I've read their job description, so I know what they're accountable for and how those problems are felt. So, how can I support myself when I reach out to these people that I look really credible with comments? Because my tagline matches. Well, what happens is if you have your profile tailored to them, so it passes that 3-second test and they're like, this is someone I should talk to. The next thing they're going to do is they're going to look through your content.
Mm-hmm.
So, what would you want to say to them in that comment? If you could just blah, like everybody does in an InMail, but make it very strategic, what would you want them to know? What are the 3 to max 5 things? Because that's what it'll fill that latest activity piece. What are those things that they need to know? What are those questions going back to the influencer strategy, going back to the win-loss analysis? What are those key things that they need to hear? Write very thoughtful posts about them. Now, posts are a one-to-many strategy. So how do you go and target more personas with those? So now you're commenting on these people with that persona, from those personas. They're going to look at your profile. You'll see it. That's not an intent trigger to go and reach out to them yet.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Let them review your profile. What they're going to do is they're going to keep going back. So you're going to play this game where first time they might not respond to you. They might just like it. The second time you show up, they're going to probably go to your profile again, but they might start reading. The third time they'll start engaging you and we have a conversation. And this is a two-way street.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens is I say something to Morgan, posts something, I comment back.
Mm-hmm.
He comments back. I comment back. He comments back. You've now opened the door to the next level of that relationship where you can send a connection request if you want. The thing that people think is that the connection request is time to just pitch. But the biggest part about a connection request is now they are part of your following. So now they will see your content on a daily basis. This is why social selling is a little bit marketing and a little bit sales.
Right.
So you're providing yourself air cover. So you want to have those posts already kind of designed as a campaign where you're posting. So now when you connect with them, you're continuing that conversation from the comments into the DMs. But what happens? What happens when you go and get a response in the DMs is it tells the algorithm that you're highly relevant to that person.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll tell you guys, top of feed is top of mind.
Mm-hmm.
And so now you're got yourself high up on the ladder. They're seeing you, and now you're doing all these conversations, and they're responding to you faster. They're getting deeper and giving you more private information in the DMs. What do you think this is signaling? What would if you're being curious of why this is happening and that you have this feeling, why do you think this works? What do you think could happen now?
Mm-hmm.
Well, this is where a lot of sellers will call. So a lot of sellers will start asking bigger questions and keep working their discovery, which is cataloged all in the DMs for you. Copy and paste so you don't forget.
Mm-hmm.
You keep moving this. You call them, they know you. It's not a cold call, it's a warm call. They know you.
Mm-hmm.
Or you're asking bigger questions and you get to a point where those questions are too big to be responded in a text message, because that's all DMs are, is a text message. But this right, as Zoe so beautifully put it, is that messages in the DMs are earned from the conversations in public. So we gotta own the comments, or else we're making a bigger struggle down the road.
Right. And I apologize, your LinkedIn privacy settings don't let us see your name. Somebody had asked, like, most of my network is salespeople, but I sell to IT. How do I post for IT but not bore my sales connections? I mean, I don't want to be too blunt here, but like,
The
kind of,
sales pay your bills?
yeah. I mean, like,
Salespeople?
do salespeople pay your bills? If not, okay, they're a part of your network. They know you're in the industry of IT. Post stuff for IT, but let's clarify something about what Nick just said, which I find really important. We know plenty of people who can articulate an insightful, a curious, a wonderful comment and book meetings just off of that comment because it's well articulated or it's well timed. And the important piece is if you're actually spearfishing instead of net fishing and you're doing roundabout conversations in the comments. And again, the first time you comment, you may get nothing. You may only get a like. But if you consistently show up on active people's or Nick, I don't know if we mentioned this, we tie in the influencer strategy previously and you're commenting on ICP comments on your influencers. So now you're taking all your social listening info and you're jumping into the comments of these influencers, you're finding your ICPs and the questions they're asking, and now you're kickstarting conversations with them in the comments. That also means that you can kickstart conversations without them having to post content, the ICPs who are active in your influencers. So all of these together mean that your content is simply another gateway to get to know you. And it works at scale, which is nice, as long as it's well done. But comments are the gateway for initial engagement and trust because people don't want to get your DM. People don't want to get your InMail. Here's the
If they
thing.
don't know you.
I posted about this. I just want to clear the air. Some posts took off about nobody wants InMails, and I got a lot of flack for it. And here's the thing: you may be able to run an InMail strategy, and now because Will Allred challenged Nick and I to figure out InMails, we may have to figure this out. But InMails are a low trust environment. InMails are as low trust as cold email, and if you comment first and you build engagement and then they view your profile and then they look at your content and then they engage in your content and then you have another conversation in their comments, that is a high trust environment, which means that getting to a conversation, asking more insightful questions, challenging them on preconceptions, however that works in your industry, that means it is far easier to get a meeting with that person that's actually meaningful instead of the low trust environment where you basically burn your TAM in order to get some small percentage of response.
So one thing I just saw on here was, where is it? Oh, shoot. Oh, actually, you know what? I'll go back to the IT question.
Okay.
Who routes in? How do you route into the account? Do you go direct to IT or do you go to sales in IT?
Mm-hmm.
If you're in sales and IT, this is getting strategic. This is thinking about it before you do it. So you have a roadmap of how you're getting into the account. If salespeople in IT are your best route into the account, go ham.
Go ham.
Go right for them and do that. Or I'm going to tell you a secret. I have other interests other than B2B sales.
Wait, you're a human, Nick? You have other interests than work?
So instead of posting about it sometimes, I just go talk to people about it. So you can comment and have fun too. So I'll talk to people that are about brewing beer because they have an interesting perspective on it that I never considered.
Mm-hmm.
So even though you love sales, if it's not paying your bills, if it's not really part of your brand, it's just something you have to make a strategic choice because part of strategy is what you say no to so that you can go deeper into what's actually working.
And to
Less,
oh,
but
sorry.
better.
Yeah.
Oh, you beat me to it, you bugger.
But Jacob's question is essentially asking if funny, playful comments are kosher. And of course. Actually, I would say, I would highly recommend using emojis if you have a dry sense of humor like I do, because sometimes it's not clearly communicated. Like you got to make sure that they are in on the joke. That's the most important piece.
We've never screwed that one up.
We never screwed that one up, Nick.
Oh,
No.
so I have to say, I did an episode with Stu Hankey,
Oh, yes.
and he wrote the book, How to Book a Meeting with Anyone.
Mm-hmm.
But what he did is was it the Washington? I can't remember. He was a professional that created cartoons. So what he did is he tailored those cartoons to the personas he was targeting, and he made them chuckle.
Made them laugh.
because laugh brings us together. Because in order to laugh, which there's a lot of great people that are doing this on LinkedIn teaching us about it, but when you laugh, you have to state the obvious so that we have a shared bond. So it's like, shit, they know me.
Yeah.
And so it's hard to do that. So you can do it. You could write a meme in a comment. I actually find these tend to be more effective after. But honestly, if it's a shared joke that it's just something funny that everybody understands, it'll have a magnifying effect where it'll build a community and conversations that keep going. So just think of why you're doing it. Are you doing it because you want to attract other people? And is it also a quality that you enjoy with people that you sell to?
Mm-hmm.
Because birds of a feather flock together. But it's just something to consider.
So we're at time, which is crazy. This has been a power hour that's flown by. Nick, any closing thoughts? Ways to wrap this all together?
If you do not time block, LinkedIn will rule your freaking life. And I'm not talking from like theory. I'm talking that it's killed my productivity
You and I both.
ruthlessly for
Ruthlessly.
months.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I started to do is I time block and I have very strategic or very specific objectives that I'm doing. And so the first one is the 3 C's, where I'm commenting, I'm doing my influencer strategy, and I'm sending out connections to people that are relevant. Usually people that have commented or viewed my profile, especially if they have the little banner that says, found you in search.
Mm-hmm.
The next one is I'm doing a social listening play because they're problem aware and I can actually help right away. And the third one, still only 30 minutes each, is I'm doing this trigger play to find those strategic pieces from accounts. And I'm doing that. And I turn my notifications off because the thing with LinkedIn, and when you're really leveraging comments, time is your friend, which is completely freaking opposite of everything we learn in sales, because you need to give it time to work, to fester, to get more people in the conversation. And you keep those conversations going, the algorithm rewards you. And my last piece is, if you guys have been here before, you know what I'm going to say. It is 2022. No seller needs to suffer in silence. If you're not getting the support you need from management, if there's nobody on the sales floor you can trust or a virtual sales floor, if you need help, reach out to either of us or people in the
Mm-hmm.
comments, and we'd be happy to support you. You don't need to buy anything.
Yeah.
Sales is a team sport, and it's all about the people you surround yourself with. We would be proud if we are one of those people. Thank you so
Agreed.
much. And
Everyone, just remember, buyers log on to LinkedIn to engage and to read and to be inspired, not to be sold. It's a social platform, so be social.
happy Canada Day.
Happy Canada Day,
Have a
everybody,
great
and
weekend.
happy Independence Day for us Americans. Yeah! Come Monday.